Hi everyone, it's lovely to be with you, even in digital form. Over the last few years, I've stepped aside to allow others of my colleagues to be able to attend the conference, and I have to say I really missed the bar. I retired last year as chaplain to the Mountain Hospices, just as the first wave of lockdowns was really kicking in. So it was a strange experience to leave friends and colleagues of nearly 20 years standing with just a distant wave. Cancelled farewell parties across all three sites and then just to walk out into an empty car park. And then the biggest frustration of the next few months was not being there to support friends and colleagues.
Mike Reeder, Senior Chaplain, St Luke's Hospice, Sheffield. For the past year or more, I've adopted the motto, keep positive, test negative. I've done very well on the second, but I've had to work really hard at the first. I have to say that in putting my thoughts down for this snapshot, I've realised that there have been some great highlights and some real lowlights. I've chosen two for each. Some of the lowlights have been, I've not enjoyed the numerous times when I've had to say no to patients and relatives who have asked for something that, due to the COVID-19 restrictions, we've not been able to say yes to. Secondly, I found that my own ways of looking after my well-being have been tested beyond what I ever thought I could cope with. I have failed on numerous occasions, but not been crushed. Some highlights have been, I've enjoyed thinking outside the box, in putting together online services of remembrance for care homes and other healthcare professionals who the hospice supports through our ECHO project. In the last year, I have also acted as the bereavement officer, supporting relatives as they have negotiated the registration process and worked out how to hold personal and fitting funerals for their loved ones. This has been a great opportunity to support them both spiritually and practically in ways that I never thought possible.
On the other hand, I had plenty to look forward to in retirement. And one of the most important things was to volunteer as a chaplain in a local GP surgery, which was starting up its own palliative care team. And this is what I wanted to share with you in particular, as it reflects on what we all do and perhaps even we take for granted. The year before retiring, I asked my local GP whether they could use someone like me. And she looked at me as if I was mad. And I thought, oh my goodness, I got this wrong. And then she said, sounding more than a little amazed, you would really do that? And the next thing I knew, there was a whirl of introductions, setting me up with email accounts, arranging a nice room for conversations, and it was still going to be months before I could start. And I confess that I was surprised, and I later asked her why she had been so keen. And she said, and I think I'll take this to my grave, she said, I have 8 minutes per patient. If I give them a double appointment, it's still only a quarter of an hour. And what use is that when they want to talk about having just 6 months to live, or the impact of not being able to drive because of their medication? And to have someone who can give a patient the time they need is just huge. You have no idea. But I do, of course, and so do you. So keep up the good work. Some people think it's more valuable than even we know. God bless everybody. Bye.
Hello, my name is Tracy Robinson and I work at the Royal Derby Hospital on the Nightingale Macmillan unit, which is a 21-bed specialist palliative care unit. I wanted to share with you a project that I did to help staff reflect on and try to process what had happened to them in this past year. It's been a chaotic and traumatic year for staff who were working on the unit. In April 2020, the Nightingale Macmillan unit became a COVID ward, admitting and treating end-of-life patients with COVID who would be transferred to us from other wards across the hospital for their last days and sometimes just their last hours of life with us. In this year, the staff have faced huge challenges, an unprecedented number of deaths, 105 deaths of patients with COVID in January alone. They've had to deal with many unconscious patients who were unknown and often alone. They've supported families largely at a distance by phone and experienced illness with COVID themselves. They've been sent to work in different areas of the hospital, and that has been very challenging for them too. So as we were approaching a whole year of working with COVID, I wanted to offer something to mark and remember the experiences that we had been through as a ward, and decided that a video would be the most effective way of permanently recording what had happened, and it would be accessible to all staff and any others that they wanted to share it with too. I wanted the process of making the video to be therapeutic in itself, getting staff to tell their own part of the bigger story. So over a period of 2 weeks in March, I was able to film around 70 video clips one-on-one with 28 staff in different roles on the unit. Often staff were in tears in these sessions as they opened up about what they had been through and hadn't really had an opportunity to talk about or even think about it.
Hello everyone, my name's Malcolm Brown, and I used to be the Spiritual Care Coordinator and Chaplain at Kirkwood Hospice in Huddersfield, now retired and a part of a volunteer team providing spiritual support at Treetops Hospice in South Derbyshire. During this past year, we've set up an event called Time to Reflect for any member of staff or volunteer at Treetops to spend an hour together reflecting on how things have been, how we're managing, what we're hoping for the future, and so on. And most months this has been a question that we've posed for them to consider beforehand. And among the questions are the following. How are you preparing for the end of lockdown? Do you have a wish list for this coming year? What 3 words would you use to describe the past year? Is there anything that has lifted you during lockdown? What have you missed most about Treetops during the lockdown? How easy is it for you to say no? And how do we take care of ourselves while supporting others? The numbers of these haven't been huge, but have been a range of volunteers and members of staff. We've had some people come back more than once, some have only come once. But in that hour, we've had the opportunity to reflect, to think, to talk together, ponder these questions and whatever else people wanted to raise. One month we didn't have a question at all and simply left it for people to share what was on their hearts and minds. It's been such a successful event that we're carrying on certainly for the next 2 or 3 months, and it's been a great opportunity for people to come together and to support each other and be encouraged. And we as a team have been so encouraged and helped ourselves by the contributions of all those who have attended. Thanks ever so much.
The finished video told the story of the year, what staff remembered about first becoming a COVID ward, what it was like being sent to work in other areas of the hospital, being told to shield, what the closing of the day unit service meant to people, what it was like having COVID outbreaks amongst staff and patients on the ward. Staff also talked about their experiences, what some of the worst things were for them, what had got them through the hardest days, what it was like to get home at the end of a shift, what they'd appreciated about their colleagues and the public, how it was to start as a new member of staff during this time, what it was like on the ward with no volunteers. They talked about the things that had changed about them through the pandemic and what it was that they were looking forward to in the year ahead. The video also included an act of remembrance, remembering those who had died with us, those we had supported along the way, and our own losses and grief. It ended with some reflective words and space, and a thank you for all that had been done.
The lowlights and the highlights have come together for me in the fact that St Luke's Hospice is going to celebrate the 50th anniversary of its foundation this year. St Luke's founder, Professor Wilkes, opened its doors on the 1st of October 1971. The events of the last year have meant that as a hospice, we are now able to press the reset button. COVID-19 has taken much away, but it's also given much when it comes to what really matters. We are pressing the reset button at St Luke's going forward. And I too am pressing my own reset button to see what is going to be my own aims, objectives, and what is right for my ministry going forward. As a chaplaincy, we have put out a thought for the moment every 2 to 3 weeks. The very first one said this: sometimes we're tested not to show our weaknesses, but to discover our strengths. That has been so true for us as a hospice and for me as an individual.
But perhaps the most profound challenge for me has been to try and put aside all the competing voices, all those voices that are telling me what I should be doing, shouldn't be doing, should be thinking, shouldn't be thinking, and asking myself, reflecting upon that fundamental question: what do I believe about life and death, and how will that affect my response to life in general, to this virus in particular, and my accompaniment of individuals at the dying end of their life? And that is an ongoing challenge.
The response to the video has been very positive, with staff appreciating being given a structured opportunity to reflect and to do this in their own private time as well. People learned things that they didn't know had happened and got a better appreciation of what people had experienced and dealt with in their different roles. They were able to recall things that they'd forgotten about, especially about the early chaotic days, when things were still all very unfamiliar. Staff have really appreciated being able to share the video with their family and their friends to get some idea of what they have been through. And we've been able to send the video to our volunteers so that they can hear the story of our experiences while they've been away and before they come back onto the unit. So overall, I would say it was a really challenging project, but a really worthwhile project for the staff, trying to reflect on and process what they've been through in this pandemic.
May you live with no regret at yesterday's mistakes and sorrow, nor be afraid of what tomorrow brings. May love hold you through today, banish fears the night throws at you. I pray you'll find your song and that you'll sing, that you'll sing, that you'll sing, that you'll sing.